Hello, everybody. This is Kathleen or Katie. I'm gonna go by Katie on Main Street, but you guys know me on X and Instagram is Kathleen. Thank you for joining me tonight, late night. If you're joining me, I have to test out my StreamYard, so I just figured I'm gonna test it out while I do my episode tonight. I'm a late night person, so at least tonight I'm working late. Friday, though, I'll be live streaming at 9:30. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, you will have me at 9:30 to 10:30, sometimes 11, to talk about Ohio news and news that is going on right now federally, especially with the Trump campaign. So today we are going to talk about NSA Nate. NSA Nate is Nate Cain, Dennis Nathan Cain, or Nathan Cain, whatever he chooses to go by. He is running for House in West Virginia. Morgantown is where my sister is and where I'm from, so I love West Virginia, and I am sad for West Virginia to have somebody like this running. He does have 3 other people in his primary, so I would vote for anyone besides Nathan Cain. But how did I get to Nate Cain? The last episode, we discussed just kind of a ultimate review over the last year and a half of what's happened between me getting to know Tori Maris, running into Hava Loudon, my ex-business partner running into Hava Loudon, how we then were taken to John Stubbins to try to figure out what Hava Loudon's connection was to Lara Logan. That led us to Nate Cain popping in on the Zoom call with Karen and Hayden and John Stubbins. And then we proceeded to get to know his story a little bit and how he fits in this puzzle. If you remember last time we met, I took you guys and showed you guys this. Sharing my screen. Give me 2 seconds. I'm getting used to this. What do you call it? Here we go. Live streaming at once. All right. Do you guys remember this? Oh, this is not the same one. This one. Okay. So I met Tori Maris saw Tori Maris and confronted her at this election event in June 18th of 2022. At that event, it was hosted by Hava Loudon with Ohio Precinct Strategy, also a human trafficking organization here in Ohio, Southern Ohio. I'll have the name of that up on my website. Mark Cook was at that event speaking. He connects to Nate Cain as well, and we'll get to that. But I did make a map here of all of the players that Nate Cain, Tori, and Hava linked us up to, and you'll see that here. And then we'll be going over this one that I made for Nate Cain specifically today. We'll be going through his recordings, and this map is going to be available on my website with a little bit more detail on it. But this is where we're at with him as of today, and it's really quite curious. So first, I want to show you guys stop sharing this, how I got to know John Stubbins, because he connects us with a man named Keith Lee as well, which is connected to January 6th. Like I said, I couldn't make up this stuff if I wanted to. So here's Hava.
I just think it's weird that clip. I wish you could have heard her because she talks about talking to Steve, and then she goes into.
She did not talk to Steve one time. He told her that day, "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing.
Don't know anything about you. I talked to him right after I went off on her in the back of the room. She's making coffee, standing next to him, and Yvonne, who was talking.
She hit up my whole team as soon as she...
I talked to her. I said my piece to her. I went right next to him. Oh, I went off on her. And then I went right to him. I said, sorry, these people are going off on you. It's really unprofessional and it's really unbecoming. You need to start at the local level. And the thing between her and Laura, I don't know what the fuck those two have going on, but they have something going on. I'm not stupid. I can read as soon as she's recording. Laura looks back. You're sitting right there. Laura looks back, looks at Tori, looks back, and then all of a sudden she's yelling at the guy she invited to the event. Hertzberg.
Oh.
She's yelling at him because he's saying get your local control because he's bipartisan. He's been back to Ohio. First time back. That's how you're going to treat somebody that you invited to an event.
No, I invited him.
So she said we've been good friends and this and that before.
So I will tell you, we had been in the background before then. So you have to understand, Steve and Laura, like, they have a very unique relationship. They fight all the time and we had dinner together.
Yeah, that's fine and all.
Best friends. But he had told her, interrupt me and push back however you want.
Yeah, it wasn't like an interruption. It was like she got that whole room riled up.
See, that's what, and she did that with me, and with Yvonne, and I'm like, Laura, quit it because I know who this is.
Yeah.
And so she
kind of out of nowhere.
Right, and I caught on to who it was because
But it was once Tori was recording.
Huh?
It was once Tori stood up recording because Tori was standing next to me, and I didn't see Tori before then. I got there about 1.
Oh, so I'll tell you what happened to Tori. So I had listened to this the day before and saw her on there. And she wasn't the other one. John Stubbins was there. Ohio Brett was there. Like that place.
John Stubbins was there. Ohio Brett was there, which I don't know who that is. But that's where we got the name John Stubbins.
Was swarming with them. And so I get there, and the team there was.
But why? But why was that place swarming?
I know why.
With who?
With people.
I know
Who's them?
Here's why they were. We've done these events all over the country, and it was the first event, I believe, because I and Steve picked who was on that stage. That I didn't let any of them on the stage. Like, they've let Dr. Franken, they've let Mike Dow, they've let all sorts of them on, and I knew who they were, and I didn't let any one of them on, and so they couldn't be. And people tried to get on that stage. It was unbelievable. I'm like, I didn't even know this was a thing where you try to get somebody's harass someone to be on their stage. Like,
who?
That's the thing. John Stubbins.
Try to get on the stage. You guys were asked everybody to leave. Everybody left.
Oh, no. He was calling me for texting.
To try to talk.
He wanted to speak.
Oh.
Brett, he was asking still at the event. He went to Matt. He went to me. He tried everything to get on. I'm like, no. Jason tried to get him on. I'm like, no. And because I don't trust it. And here's what I learned: when you say no, a normal person walks away. These guys didn't walk away. They kept. I just think it's weird that clip. I wish you could hear her too, because she talks about talking to Steve, and then she goes into.
She did not talk to Steve one time. He told her that. So that's when Hava mentions John Stubbins. So Karen and I leave the Ohio precinct strategy that didn't know what the precinct strategy was. Met her for dinner because I told Karen it was a psycho from this event, and she was like, well, she was talking about election integrity stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go with you so you're not murdered. You know what I mean? By some weirdo. I went with her, and it was 2 hours of craziness. I only started recording about halfway through because I'm like, I got to get this on tape because no one would believe us. Like, half the shit she said. She makes no sense. But we got a hold of our friend Hayden. Hayden knew because he had a mutual friend on Facebook of John Stubbins. He was friends with them, so he ended up getting a hold of him. We talked to him and scheduled this Zoom call to talk about what his connection with Laura Logan was, if he was still in connection with her, what Hava Loudon's connection was with Laura Logan, because she told us at that time that she had worked for Laura Logan on the Sydney, and then also worked on the Sidney Powell team vetting Maris, which is Tori Maris of Tori Says. And I wrote articles about her sister, Helen Marie Maris, that you'll see who that is in a sec. If not, go back to the last 5 episodes. We've been talking about her. But we get all this guy schedule Zoom call, right? We get on a Zoom call, and I just want to play this video for you real quick, because after this Zoom call with John Stubbins and Nate Cain, I go back to look at Hava's history, and I find out that Hava did a Zoom call back to October of 2020 with John Stubbins. So they know each other very well, and I'm going to play that right now for you.
Go. I've got Hava Loudon and Keith Lee. Keith Lee is the national director for MAGA Interstate, and Hava is the Ohio. It's interesting because you've been seeing across the country, whether it's the Amish, whether it's the boat flotillas across America, or the MAGA Interstate drives, people are coming out, and even when the president comes into a particular city and he's being greeted, by thousands and thousands of different supporters that are there to greet President Trump. And you can see that these people, they're lining the streets. And again, it's by the thousands. And the fake news media won't report it. But what's interesting is President Trump has so much support out there all over the country. And it's just exciting. And we love to see these flotillas and the MAGA Interstate drives. And so without further ado, I want to bring on to the show Hava Loudon and Keith Lee, who are the, like I said, the national director. Keith is the national director. Hava is the Ohio director. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Hey.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, we're thrilled to have you. Tell us a little bit about what got you guys involved in this and how you heard about it. Keith, did you contact Hava? Hava, did you contact Keith? How did you guys come together?
Well, I'll tell you kind of how it started. I was kind of like this digital warrior, like most of us were. We're on here. We're trying to research ourselves and try to just try to figure out what's going on, what's truth, because the mainstream media, they're lying to you consistently, and you don't know what's the truth. So I've learned to go and research it myself and try to figure it out. Well, so you're online all the time, and finally I just had this feeling I've got to do something. I've got to stand up. I've actually got to do something physical. So I started driving my neighborhood with a flag, and I contacted my twin brother in Dallas, and I was like, hey, what about if we go and just drag this big huge triangle around me, go to Dallas, picking up people as we go back down to Austin, back over.
So why does that clip even matter? Well, for one, it puts Hava and John Stubbins together, correct? So they've known each other since at least October of 2020, at least. Keith Lee, why is he important? And also, I want to tell you guys this before I move on. When you see the wooden American flags painted in these social influencers' background, it's been like a common theme for the grifters to have this. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the American flag, but they always have like a picture behind them of the American flag, or they have one hanging behind them. And I don't know if it's like a sign for them to share each other's stuff or know that they're working together, or it's just really odd that they all have that kind of painting. It's like a wood painting with it's odd. And you can see it in that video with Keith Lee. He has that big. Anyways, Keith Lee matters because I gotta share my screen. Give me a second. Here we go. Keith Lee right here. January 6th. Of course, now my internet wants to be dumb. Here's January 6th, Keith Lee. before the Capitol riot calls for cash and talk of revolution. Keith Lee, an Air Force veteran and former police detective, spent the morning of January 6th casing the entrances to the Capitol. So there he is, and he was seen very early morning around the entrances of the Capitol. And then I noticed when I was looking at pictures of him coming out of the Capitol, and nobody's heard about him on the news, out. Probably should upload these photos. So here's the door to the Capitol. He's coming straight out. I think that's his twin brother. I'm 80% sure. And what was interesting is Brandon Straka was around this group. Somebody actually pointed him out in the video I'm about to play you guys. So then I noticed in this photo, look at the earpiece. Like, who's just going around with an earpiece like that,
Have evacuated all of the senators and House representatives. We have done our job. Now they're closing the exits and they're going to arrest everybody that's inside. Okay? So we've done our job. Let's step outside. Let's be peaceful and let's go sing the national anthem.
This was the inside. We took this alone. Guys, when we were doing this, if we do it together, when we're at mass like this, there's no violence. I promise you. They basically just let us go in once we got to a certain point. They weren't there. They weren't there to do. This is our house, guys. We should be allowed. We should be allowed to see our representatives.
Keith, that does not look good at all. So he said basically everybody inside's getting arrested. Let's go sing our job is done here. Let's go sing the national anthem. He was casing around he was around the Capitol early mornings, New York Times reported, and no one's ever heard of him. And he was front line. He was front and center, going in, going out, and no arrests, no anything. And Havaladin's connected to him, leading the trucker movement on the MAGA side for Ohio. So just keep that in mind when you guys hear trucker movements. You don't know who these people are that are organizing them. How do you know that they're not just trying to get you to participate, to get you into something? Because I don't think it's just, for no reason when the guy's up at January 6th. So now Keith Lee's Twitter has gone silent. He's gone silent. I have about a week ago and asked her, if you have a contact number for Keith Lee, I'd love to have it. I haven't heard back from her yet. So we get on this call in November 18th of 2022 with John Stubbins and Nate Cain. And I believe Nate Cain's the more important person here. Nate Cain claims been a whistleblower for the FBI against Uranium One. But before we get into his whistleblowing, I do want to share with you guys an article, just because his timeline doesn't make that much sense. So I'm going to share with you. Hillary uranium bologna story debunked in Politico. I just want you guys to pay attention to the date. October 23rd, 2017. This is talking about exactly what Nate Cain is talking about then, saying that he whistleblowed in 2018. The deal with Uranium One being sold through company Rosenstein, through the Hillary Clinton Foundation. Nothing ever came of it. He went in front of the House, and he's going to tell a story here, but nothing came from this. And this was actually, someone had already in January of 2000, not January, someone had already blown the whistle on this. So I just think it's funny that, a year after this article comes out, he comes out saying that he blew the whistle. And it's been kind of a theme with some of these people and their storylines of like, yeah, I'm a whistleblower, and then nothing really comes of it. So I'm going to play you our first recording with Stubbins asking him about Hava. And then I believe Nate comes in on one of these.
How she materialized for me. She contacted me. She was not the leader, but she was connected to the MAGA Interstate Drive. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like this is all very targeted and intentional.
Yes.
I'm gonna, and so let me just say this. So I've got my show going. This is in 2020, and she reached out to me. I don't even know how she got my number. Maybe it was through social media. That's probably what it was. She reached out to me, wanted to bring herself and the national MAGA interstate leader and this MAGA interstate group. What they do is they put cars all over the United States, and at a certain time they drive and they have flags, you know, Trump and MAGA and all this. So these are like coordinated drives is what they are, right? And so she wanted to bring herself and this national leader.
Who was the national leader? Did you know? Did you ever know who that was?
He came on my show with her. I want to say Keith something. I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
Okay.
But anyway, the two of them came on the show and haven't talked about the Ohio MAGA Interstate Drive, and then Keith, if that was his name, he talked about
She told us that she essentially led us to believe that she worked for Sidney Powell.
Yes.
For Sidney Powell. That her team was the one who vetted marriage. She said that. I don't know if we caught it on there, but she said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, she's also called herself a handler.
She told us hers.
on the audio record.
Yes,
No, but that's only.
Did she ever call herself a handler? Was that
Yeah,
on
but
there?
that's at a 2 hour about a 2 hour conversation. I only started recording halfway through after we started eating because it was insane.
I mean, round and round in circles we went. It was like a carousel of crazy.
I was done after 5 minutes, Karen. Let's just be honest. I was like, get me the fuck out of here.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, guys.
About it. She told us that she essentially led us to believe that she worked.
So that's Karen, my ex-business partner, talking about how she told us that she was a handler. She let that slip when we were asking her connections between Tori Maris and her. She also told us that she worked for the Sidney Powell team, which is why she knew Lara Logan and John Stubbins and all of them. He didn't confirm that, but we then then Nate Cain comes into the conversation, and we eventually ask him what his connection is, and here is his explanation, and then we're going to get into who Nate Cain is.
About Mark, Cook, and Hava. So I found out that Hava and Mark and also Steve Hertzberg had, essentially devised a plan to kind of cut me out of the group. And, I don't care, whatever. By that time, I was so burned out, and if they wanted to go do their thing, then fine. But what was bad was, like I said...
Yeah, but you put the group together, right, Nate?
Definitely, I didn't put the group together. Mike Tremarco, I would say, had more to do with putting the group together, but I definitely held it together. I ended up, when we had no money and no funding, and the GOP clearly was not going to, fund our work, I put my name and my reputation and neck out on the line to raise funds for the group. And a couple of things of note that happened that were pretty despicable in my opinion. One was this guy I was telling you about, Garrett Ziegler. He was the White House connection.
That's important. He's telling you Garrett Ziegler, who was Ziegler, by the way, who was the person of contact, point contact person for this election group, right? He was the aide to Peter Navarro, who was an aide to Trump. Peter Navarro is actually going through court right now regarding not testifying in front of the J6 committee, being, what is it called, under, when you don't answer subpoena, I can't think of the word now because I'm whatever, but that's really important. And he also brings up that Mike Tremarco is in front of the group, which brings me to this map. I just want to show you guys real quick. That is the election team and everything that he's talking about, and we're going to go through that as he gives another interview that I actually show you guys. But I just wanted to show you that because that is really quite important.
Upon the dissolving of our group, we had all this, equipment that had been purchased, and we had raised money to pay off that equipment. So technically, we owned that equipment, and so Mark ended up offering a pretty expensive server to Garrett Ziegler and gave it to him, which is illegal. You can't give. He was still working for the government at the time. And, it's like a gift in kind. And so I felt like it was, kind of a semi-bribe, was not, and Harry called him on it and basically, said, this is BS. You're not going to do this. And then the other thing that happened was Hava, her dad had given like a donation to the group. And I want to say it was like, it was $1,000 or a couple $1,000 or something like that. And then she pulled that back after that came in, and we had already spent money, to pay some of our bills. And so that left us, so between Mark and Hava, it left us about $2,500 in the hole when we, kind of finished our thing and, outside of our budget. And, but what they did was just, it was not just a matter of it being, ethically wrong, but it was, probably illegal.
Well, yeah, illegal, ethically wrong, and cheap.
Yeah, and so I don't know much about what was said in my absence, but I can tell you this much: Mark and I think Hava have showed up at. Mark has embedded himself onto Mike Lindell's team. I've seen him also at. I was in Pennsylvania at an event, a rally for Mastriano, and I saw Mark Cook. I saw Mark Cook at that event, and probably because I think Mike Lindell was there and he was, speaking. And so Mark shows up at all these places where, where there's been disaster. He was
at the symposium. I was there in South Dakota. I was there too. But he was not.
What I was saying about Mark Cook and Hava. So
Nate Cain there is confirming he knows Hava. They worked on the election team. When they're talking about election team, I want to show you what they're actually talking about. So we're going to go to... All right, our election integrity team. So Nate says that he worked on election integrity team with Garrett Ziegler. Garrett Ziegler Their connection is Cain stated Ziegler was their connection to Navarro and in constant contact with them, equipment, just like Nate just discussed. Now, who put together this election team? Well, in one of our recordings, Nate talks about how he was asked to come down to the by the White House, and where they met was Steve Bannon's office. And I found that really interesting. That, like, what does Steve Bannon have to do with this? And somehow Steve Bannon was connected with the Sidney Powell team, because Nate also states that they signed affidavits for Sidney Powell. They didn't get to meet her because that was when she got the death threat, so she ended up going down to Lynn Wood's plantation. And I don't know how he's connected in here, so he's not on this reel because I really haven't put that together. But what I did put together is the Sidney Powell team was Mike Flynn and Patrick Byrne. Patrick Byrne is connected to Tory Maris. He's on our podcast multiple times. He was the old overstock of CEO. He's resigned due to his affair with a Russian spy. So that's interesting. Patrick Byrne also, I put here, you can see the Twitter. Patrick Byrne also was December 21st, I believe it was, 21st or 20th of 2020. He ended up getting into the White House via Garrett Ziegler up here, and meeting with Donald Trump. And that's the one where Donald Trump's lawyers are like losing their mind, because he said these three idiots were telling him to enact the his military powers, and telling him, fight for the stolen election. And I will tell everybody, the problem with the election is that you are not going to get a hold of the software, because the software is proprietary. You know what I mean? So you'll never find election cheating through the software itself. Now, where you could find issues is stuffing ballots, stuff like that, registration, the rolls, clean them, this, that, and other thing. But the way everything that these three were saying was just quite kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. So on December 20th, they went to the White House. They got in, sitting. That's the whole thing everybody's heard, where everybody's saying that they colluded they colluded together and went in front of Donald Trump and tried to get him to enact. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. Trump's attorneys laughed at these three and thought the entire thing was insane. And Rudy Giuliani was there as well. And I find that really interesting, that all of these people are working on this front. And what was the purpose of that? Well, I actually about 2 weeks ago got onto a 2 weeks ago, I got onto a live stream, one of those Twitter chats or whatever, the spaces, and Nate Cain was speaking, and that is what I'm going to show you. I confronted Nate Cain. I said, some of your stories didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that he said he didn't know who, not know him personally. I want to make this clear before I put this recording, that he did not know who Charlie Flynn was, who's the head of the fleet of the U.S. Pacificom, especially when Nate Cain worked in Hawaii, worked in not the Middle East, Japan, in cybersecurity, where Charlie Flynn has spent his career in a higher rank of military. Like, you would know who he is. It just doesn't make sense. His explanation doesn't make sense. He also told us during this recording, I asked him who Marie Helen Maris was, who was the woman speaking from the DoD in February 2016 about how to censor Donald Trump online, and talked about public-private partnerships between social media companies and the government to censor Donald Trump and us, the American people. You can find that on meanstreetoh.com, meanstreetoh.com, Mean Street News. There's an article about Marie Helen Maris. There's two articles, and one about Tory Maris, to get caught up if you want to see what I'm talking about. There also on my YouTube, there is a the full video of the DVIDS video that explains that where she's talking to the foreign press about, you know, usurping our right and using our tax dollars as an incentive to do so. It's really interesting. So I'm going to share the Twitter space where I confront Nate Cain, and then we're going to go to an interview that I found that he did where he goes over his background, what he's done in his career, the Horowitz report. He goes over Hillary, her email servers, and then I connect why this is even important. Because he also talks about the Durham report, which is really interesting, a specific page that relates to him. And if this page relates to him, then he, I think, is more involved in the government than he likes to put on.
Hey Nate, it's Kathleen. I don't know if you remember me from about a year ago. We spoke. I had brought up Jerry State out here in Ohio. At the time that we talked, you said that you knew who Marie Helen Maris was, but I accidentally had cut you off at that point, and I wanted to ask you how you knew Marie Helen. And then my second question for you was, you said when your house got raided by the FBI that there was a laptop there that they weren't allowed to access. Why weren't they allowed to access it, and what agency was that laptop from? Oh, sorry, I have three questions for you. My third question too is, you told me that you didn't know who Charlie Flynn was, the head of SOCOM, and you were stationed in Hawaii, I believe, for 3 years. So that kind of doesn't make sense either. So I really want to know about the Marie Helen, because as you know, in February 2016, she was discussing with the DOD how to censor Donald Trump online.
All right, so I'll start with the Marie Helen. I honestly don't remember. So I don't know if I was following her or if she was following me. It's, obviously it wasn't a very close relationship, if any. Or maybe I didn't, have a relationship with her at all. I just don't remember. I wish I could tell you more. But in regards to the laptop, I can tell you that the issue that happened there was they collected from me literally every electronic that I had in my house, and I worked from home at the time for the VA, and so they took my government laptop. And the FBI agent, asked for. He contacted me against my wishes after I had given him my lawyer's, contact information, and had asked them not to contact me directly. But he contacted me directly, and and basically, finagled my phone password out of me. And then he started going down trying to get other passwords from me, and I immediately regretted after I gave him my phone password, because I realized what was going on. And he said to me, can you give me your government laptop password? And I said, no, I can't do that. I've signed a agreement that says that I can't give it to anybody, and I know the law. He's got to get a warrant. And I said, that's not my computer, and so I don't have the right to give you access to it. And he said, oh, yeah, you can totally do that. And I said, no, I cannot. That would be illegal. And I said, but here's the name and number of my systems administrator at the VA. I'm sure if you contact them, they'll be more than happy to give you access, and they can get in with administrator passwords and all of that and see everything. I've got nothing to hide. And he got angry with me, and he's, basically started threatening me. And at which point I told him, with all due respect, I have nothing left to say to you. Please don't contact me again. And then I hung up. And this guy was pretty aggressive. He called me right back, and I immediately, didn't answer. And I think that was kind of what initiated him really kind of taking, going after me almost from a personal matter, personal level. And then, going after my kids and everything else. Now, as far as not knowing Charlie Flynn or anybody for that matter, I was in Hawaii, but I was at Pearl Harbor Navy Shipyard So the shipyard is a different. It's different than the military. I mean, it is a military base. You have Pearl Harbor Navy Shipyard, which it's almost all mostly government employees that work at the shipyard and that do maintenance and repair on the ships and submarines. There are a few military people, but it's not that many military people there. And I was a civilian, DoD civilian, Navy civilian at the time. And then you had Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. So Hickam is just north of there or south of there, I'm not sure. But Hickam is towards the exit of the bay, and that they do have a lot of Air Force people there, but I hardly was ever over there. And then they have some other military bases that are on the island, but I never, was ever at any of those military bases because.
But he's the head, not to cut you off, but he's the head of that fleet. So it just is kind of odd that you say that you don't know him. You also said you joined the FBI in 2016, and then you whistleblowed on the FBI. But
2017 and 18.
Okay, and what came from that? Anything?
Yes, I got raided by 16 agents, and they made my life.
No, not the raid. I'm saying afterwards because Grassley was.
No.
That's
what I'm saying. Nothing. I'm being facetious, and I'm saying that
But then you worked on an election team with Patrick Byrne and all them. Well, you were their twin team or something from December 18, 2020, and we all know that the December 18, 2020 with the Patrick Byrne was the reason to get Trump basically charged with treason, try to call on the army. You know what I mean? Like none of your story really.
I never.
Oh, now everybody's muted.
No, I don't know what happened. It wasn't muted.
Sorry,
we just lost audio.
I mean, Nate, you jumped in on a Zoom call with me, looking into Tori Says. You tell me this story about an election integrity team. That team.
They muted me again.
And remuted.
Sorry.
Hold on.
It's funny. I start talking about this and I start getting.
Hold on. I said hold on, because you're firing a bunch of questions, right?
I'm doing it intentionally. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm telling you not to do that because.
Because his answers don't really make much sense and compared to what.
Okay, but I'm sitting.
I'm more than happy to answer your.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Look.
Answer the question about the election.
Look. That's not what we do in these spaces. I don't have a problem with someone disagreeing. I don't have a problem with someone disagreeing with Nate. No one's going to agree with everything, but we're going to do this in a respectful way, or we're just going to drop. That's it. You can have your questions. You can.
It's so funny because they act like I'm like being, unreasonable. And, you ask people questions back to back like that to get them to trip up, to get them to not have a time to think about their answers. Because if you have a time to think about your answer and I give you time to process, the likelihood of you going to lie to me and give me some, long answer like Nate likes to do is likely. And I don't really want to hear his bullshit. I want to hear the truth. And, when you start shooting questions at people, they start telling the truth. Now, this is where it gets funny. They get a little irritated at me. Because he says, I don't even remember your question, so I try to go to repeat it, and they get all mad, and they try to block me. It's quite funny, but let's continue.
And, you can ask questions, but do not make attacks, please. Be respectful. That's just what this space is about. And please don't come off your mic. Allow someone to finish their point, just like we respectfully will allow you to finish your point.
Yes, because if you do more than one question, kind of keep firing that, I will drop you out of the space, okay? Or out of the speaker. So if you want to speak and ask your question one at a time, give an opportunity to respond. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, so we can continue. I don't know if Nate, you want to finish answering one of the
No,
questions.
I'd like to answer that. For one thing, you asked me a whole lot of questions all at once. So the problem with that, when you do that, it makes it hard for me to remember everything you're asking. So, and you might monopolize
Well,
all
like,
time.
can I just ask one
Wait,
more
no,
and
no,
then I'm
no,
out
no,
of
no.
here?
You
Because
let
I'm
me.
doing a
No,
podcast
sorry.
on you
You let me
tomorrow.
finish. You let me finish
No, I'm just saying,
what
just
I was
you said
saying.
you didn't remember my
All right, you
question.
know what?
That's
You're
the only
being
reason I wanted to
Kathleen,
repeat
you're
it.
being
Kathleen,
disrespectful.
okay, Kathleen, I said, let him speak. You cut him one more time and I will kick you. Okay? No questions asked. Do it again and you'll get kicked.
So to answer your question about not knowing, some military person, that's a ridiculous notion that I should know, every military person just because I worked as a DoD civilian. That is absolutely ridiculous. I have worked in the military, and I could show you, my DD 214 from my time when I was a government or a military soldier, and I could show you my SF 86 from the time that I worked for both the Navy as a Navy civilian, honorably, and as a Marine civilian. So I'm not going to sit here and take these accusations lightly from somebody who I don't even know. Number one, because what that sounds to me like is it sounds like you're some sort of plant who's in here just trying to discredit me by shooting a bunch of questions at me that actually have no basis at all. As far as Patrick Byrne, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I didn't work with Patrick Byrne, but I don't have any problem with Patrick Byrne. I have met him since, long after the work that I did there, and I'm not aware at all of him doing anything against Donald Trump. So I don't know where you come off with that either. And then the last thing, to try to make the claim that that I didn't blow the whistle. Maybe you need to wake up and go look at the news. Go look up Dennis Nathan Cain and Daily Caller, and you will find the news story where the story broke about me blowing the whistle. And yes, do I sound pissed off? I am, because you know what? I went through a whole lot of hell for what I did for my country, and that's more than you've done. And you know what? You don't have a right to sit there and try to basically belittle me for doing something that was the right thing to do, regardless of whether or not the government actually did anything about it. The fact is, no, they didn't do anything about it. The only thing they did was punish me for actually blowing the whistle. And that's part of the damn problem with whistleblowing, is that whistleblowers who actually are whistleblowers get punished. So you know what? You need to go look in the mirror and think about who you're working for. Because you're certainly not working to help America. You're certainly not working towards helping to correct these problems. And you're certainly not working towards helping whistleblowers have the courage to do it. That's all I'm going to say to you.
Well, here's my response. We're done. I recorded our conversation from last year, and you did say that you were on Patrick Byrne's team. I have the recording. There's going to be a podcast tomorrow night. I've
Okay,
done
go
some
ahead,
research on you, Nate. None of your
because I don't
story.
remember that.
Can you not cut me off?
All right, I'm going to sit down and say this is not the place where you want to have that type of thing here. Okay, I don't know what this is, but I'm not I'm not going to have that here. This is not what this is for. Thank you.
But you turn my mic up, and you guys can cut me off. That's fine. You guys have a good.
I'm sorry. I should have probably stopped.
That was so funny. I think it's hilarious. He got so mad after he's like, you're blaming me for this and that. Why do I not believe Nate Cain? Let's get to that, right? Let's get to his work history first. which doesn't really make sense because he's a flip-flopper. He flip-flops around his background. It's this, it's that, it's another thing. Let's hear it from his own mouth.
Thing that I was talking about, the certificate I was talking about is the certificate of conformity that these labs produce, where they've validated that these machines meet certain standards. She was talking about something completely different in her thing. In fact, the stuff, I looked at her report and it seemed very kind of fantastical and kind of like just
doesn't make
way over
sense.
the edge, and and hacking from abroad, and all, these machines don't connect to the internet in the way that people have been, the way it's been described. The fact is, the cheating happened from mail-in ballots and from ballot stuffing. And yes, there was probably some ballot flipping that happened, and through people swapping out V drives, and also there's evidence that there were counterfeit ballots. I've seen a lot of this evidence, and the fact is it was basically the same old ways that people have been cheating forever, except they had it on steroids.
Yes.
But she was one of these people pushing this foreign hack bullshit, through satellites and all this crap, and I just know. Look, I've been in cyber for over 25 years. I've worked for the NSA. I've worked for Marforce Cyber. I've worked for the Defense Department for most of my career. I've worked for the FBI. I work at DEA now. Anything that I was talking about, the certificate I was talking about is the certificate of conformity that these labs produce, where they've validated that these machines meet certain standards. She was talking about something completely different in her thing. In fact, the stuff, I looked at her report and it seemed very kind of fantastical and kind of like just
doesn't make sense.
So that's when he told us that he, worked NSA, DEA, FBI. But then I found an interview, crowdsourced the truth. I'm only using this video for educational purposes only, to learn about Nate Cain and what he said for the American public. So please, you cannot sue me. It's for copyright purposes. This is for educational purposes only.
Going in and basic, but we went to Marforce Cyber. I got picked up for this role on a cyber protection team, and the idea there was that I would be going after hackers that were attempting to infiltrate our national critical infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And so they sent me to their cyber core school at FANX, and I ended up going through their training. It was some of the best training I've ever had in my life. And it was really, really intense. I mean, it was like every single day.
Chickens are coming home to roost.
Yes. Yeah, that's Rudy over there. One of the things that happened there was our team was part of the national mission. So we got detached, and we basically were attached to NSA. So I went through and got read on to all of these programs that I had no idea at the time just how relevant they would be now. But things like FISA, things like 702, intelligence authorities, all of that. And I mean, I had my intelligence, that was the first time I ever was part of the intelligence community. And I had my badge that allowed me to, get into places like, the Pentagon and,
wow.
Walk in. And it was real. And
what years roughly?
This would have been 2015, I think, somewhere around there. We ended up, I wasn't there for very long. I was only there for, a little over a year. And that was due to, as soon as I got my training and I, put that up on my resume, and immediately I got called, like the day after I graduated from, the Cyber Corps unit, and a company called me and they wanted me to come, interview for twice the amount of money that I was making. So, I mean, it was kind of hard to turn down.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved working there. Probably it was one of the most exciting jobs I ever had. And, but, when you got a family, you got to consider income. So I ended up going down interviewing with the FBI, and it was one of the most exciting, times of my life, in the sense that I always had this great respect and admiration for the FBI. I saw them as like the premier law enforcement unit. I was not somebody that had a college degree, And so
that's shocking.
Yeah, you know,
you seem so intelligent and educated.
Well, I've educated myself, and I now fast forward to to my time going to the FBI. When I interviewed with them, they had I think something like 17 guys they had just been going through, and they couldn't get them to they didn't like anybody. And when I interviewed, because I had that training and the unit that I was hired in under the Information Assurance Division, they had another unit that did penetration testing as well. And so I had some skills that could fit both things. And I think that was one of the reasons they really liked me. But I also had a lot of experience in setting up tenable systems. And it was their vulnerability management system. And they were getting ready to deploy it all the way across, the FBI's, all of their field offices and everything. And I had done that for Pearl Harbor Navy Shipyard, and helped to set that up across Misawa and a couple of other places, and remotely in Japan. And so I had some experience in that enterprise wide area network deployment. So things went really well in the interview, and I got offered the job, and I started working there. And at first it was really slow. This was something that was being pushed down to
so
the
again, what time roughly?
This would have been 2000, I think 2000, late 2016.
So after Trump won?
No.
In the heat of the campaign?
Yeah, it was probably right in the heat of the campaign, yeah, because it was 2018, right?
16.
Sorry, 2016. So no, it had to have been before, dang. All right, so I got the times wrong on this, because I got there before he won, so it was before the election.
Okay.
And but I was working in there, and one day I came in, so let me think about this. I went to Japan 2012, 13, 14, 15. So I came over 2015, and I worked at NSA 15 to 16.
Let me just add some context that you may or may not be aware of, and this is all publicly available information. So, which is the only thing we deal with. To set your mind at ease. We have done a lot of work on the investigation by the Inspector General of the the intelligence community that began with a referral to the FBI on July 6th, 2015.
Okay.
So the Inspector General of the IC was all over Hillary Clinton and all over the whole process of her having...
Now, when you say the IC, are you talking about Michael Atkinson? Or are you talking about a different one?
The guy before that.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say it had to have been somebody other than
Chuck McCulloch.
Because Atkinson was dirty.
Yeah, Chuck McCulloch.
Okay,
so he was.
That makes sense.
So he was the guy who recommended to the FBI on July 6, 2015, that Hillary Clinton's whole unvetted devices and private server system be investigated.
Right.
And there's a lot. I think it's what now, Jason? 50+ part report online you can look at in the FBI vault. Hillary R. Clinton. So they begin that right when you're where you were.
Right. So I probably got there then early 2016 because it was before the election.
Right.
But not too much before it.
Right. But so why I'm bringing it up is, in theory, the FBI was investigating Hillary Clinton.
He's about to bring up exactly what I would have. So we're just going to go on and play clip 3 when he talks about Hillary Clinton and the date. Because it was January. January. I'm going to tell you. January Crossfire Hurricane, January 2016, I believe it was. Even July 2015, it was starting to come into effect. But by July 2016, Comey made a statement that says that Hillary Clinton, all kind of even though she had emails on a private server, that some were classified, some not classified, some like in between or whatever, that he wasn't going to go after them. And that was in July of 2016 that he said this, that he was not going to be going after Hillary Clinton for her crimes on the email server, and while she was campaigning to be president as well. And it's also, the date that's also when Clinton showed up in Phoenix in June of 2000. This is important. June of 2007, 16, June 27th, Clinton showed up in Phoenix and met on the tarmac, met Loretta Lynch. So I just want to bring that up too. And then a month later, Comey gets out and says, you know, we're not investigating her.
But that was kind of interesting because it was right around that same time. And then when he told me about this other issue, you know, I remember thinking, no way. You know, you got to, I mean, I knew there was stuff going on. I knew this at this time, the main thing that was going on was the Hillary email server, you know, was being investigated. And I knew, you know, and so I was kind of like, the thought of a cover up, you know, I had to look. I couldn't just ignore that. But when I went and looked, I saw, I never did find those transcripts because by the time I got in there, it was probably already moved. But what I did find was I found a whole lot of Treasury suspicious activity reports that had been, you know, sent over by FinCENT.
Let me stop you there just
Sure.
for the audience. How much trouble might you get in with one suspicious activity report? What does that mean exactly when something like that gets issued?
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean anything at first. A suspicious activity report is just that, it's suspicion. But these were different. These were ones that had already been analyzed by intelligence analysts within the FBI. And they had analyst notes down below. They had a case number. So they were part of an investigation. They were considered evidence. They had field offices that they were connected to. And one of the things that was surprising to me was the ones that I saw all said high credibility of, you know, of criminal activity.
Wow.
And so the criminal codes that were assigned to these different FinCENT notices were, one was money laundering. That was the majority of them were related to money laundering. You had public corruption, you had securities and exchange fraud, and you had terrorism financing.
Wow.
And all of these things were there, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, there's no way Hillary Clinton doesn't get indicted. I mean, this was like, it had the bank accounts and the routing for how money went from this account to this account to this shell corporation to this shell account to this charity to that charity, and it named all the names, all the people, everybody involved, all of that. So I mean, they were able to see everything.
And again, the timing, if you could try to remember a little bit more specifically, was it March 2016? Was it June? Was it September?
It had. So I know it was before the election.
Right.
I know it was probably March. Probably sounds about right, somewhere around there. And at first, when I saw this, these had field offices that these were assigned to, and they also had it was field offices that were assigned, and then there were case numbers assigned. So my thought was, well, no, this isn't being covered up. They're investigating it, you know,
right.
And investigations take time, and so, you know, let them do.
So no worries here. It's being investigated. Investigation's gonna take time. You know, he wasn't thinking anything bad at the time, even though we all knew at the time what was going on with the Justice Department and going after Trump. Oh, excuse me. So it's just interesting how he says, you know, how much he knew about, you know, the Clinton emails, this, that, and other thing. And this is not even talking about the election integrity team he was on, and all of them tying to that as well. But also, I just want to bring this up to you guys. For knowing so much about her emails and stuff, why didn't he whistleblow on that? Why just this one topic of uranium one? It doesn't really make sense. And how many Clinton whistleblowers do you all know that are still alive and not worried about, you know? So, I mean, that was the first thing I told my ex-business partner. I was like, you know, what Clinton whistleblower do you know that's still here? Just saying.
March probably sounds about right, somewhere around there. And at first, when I saw this, these had field offices that these were assigned to, and they also had it was field offices that were assigned, and then there were case numbers assigned. So my thought was, well, no, this isn't being covered up. They're investigating it,
Right.
And investigations take time, and so let them do their job, and they'll finish and everything. Then you'll remember Comey came out and he made that statement in front of
July.
Yeah.
Just if I apologize for keep jumping in, but first what happened was that Bill Clinton showed up in Phoenix on the tarmac with Loretta Lynch on June 27th.
That's right.
It was, and they tried to explain they were talking about grandchildren, and I'm not an intelligence professional or even a journalist, but I know what Phoenix is like in June.
I think everybody knew that was bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just all the
terminology.
Yes, that's a technical term. And I remember, even some talk in the office, that,
wow.
My division head, I remember, him and I having a conversation about that, and none of us believed that, that was legit.
And what was interesting to me is that this FBI vault, you probably have been through it, the FBI vault, and I don't know how they decide what goes into the vault and what doesn't go into the vault, but the FBI vault on the tarmac meeting is all about the FBI saying, who is this prick bastard, excuse my language, in journalism.
Who died
who later died, who, released this story. How did this get out? Not...
Right.
why is President Clinton meeting with former President Clinton meeting with Loretta Lynch? It was shocking to me, the tone.
So Comey came out and he did this press conference in front of J. Edgar Hoover building, and I'll never forget because I was standing up there in the office. Now I didn't work in the J. Edgar Hoover building. I worked down in a non-disclosed building where the Information Assurance Division was, but it was in Washington D.C. Yeah. And I remember watching, the news, because they had news on all the time in there. Of course, it was always, MSNBC or CNN, right?
That's not news.
but I remember watching and seeing Comey get out there. And at first, I'm thinking, oh man, they're about ready to lay out an indictment, because the first thing Comey does is he lays out essentially everything about all the crimes that had been committed, right? And the one thing that stuck out to me that was just shocking was that they had found 7 email chains on her email server that had SAPs and special access programs. And a lot of people don't know what those are, or even why that's such a big deal. But these are programs that are above top secret. They're top secret, but they're compartmentalized too, meaning you can't, even if you had a top secret, you can't access them. You have to be read on to the program to even be able to see them, and then they're kept in a compartmentalized area of a SCIF.
Wow.
And they're not on a computer that is connected to the internet or anything like that. There's no possible way to spill. Sometimes secret stuff gets spilled, and it happens. And I've seen a lot of that, and it's usually because somebody, copied something or printed something or was sent down through a system and they didn't have the proper markings on it. But something that is a SAP, it's in an envelope, or a folder that's folded over the top. It never leaves the SCIF.
How would she get that stuff?
Well, she was the Secretary of State.
Wow.
So, but my question was, who brought it out? Who put it on her server? And then because that was clearly illegal, and one might even argue it was a violation of the Espionage Act. And I mean, that's what I was always warned about. You take anything out of here, you're going to get charged with espionage and mishandling classified information, and that would be the worst. That would be the least of your problems.
That stays at the top of mind.
It does. And so when I heard him talking about this, I'm thinking, oh man, she's going down. And then he said, and he also mentioned too that they had confirmed that foreign countries had accessed her server and had likely compromised it. So my first thought was she running a Dropbox? Was that what was going on here, with her email server? Was this let's put some files here, and then certain people that, maybe, pay to play or whatever will let them supposedly hack in and get these documents? I mean, I can only speculate, but it was extremely troubling to see that being told to us. And then the next thing out of Comey's mouth is, no reasonable prosecutor would bring a charge against her. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right.
And so when that happened, I knew that everything I had been told about a cover-up was true, that they were going to cover this up. And so then began the turmoil of trying to figure out, number one, how could I blow the whistle? Because Comey, Rod Rosenstein even, because remember, he was the attorney he was the U.S. attorney that went after 10X and all of the Russian Rosatom kickback scheme, but nothing had ever happened, right? There was no charges ever there. Right. You had McCabe, you had, and then, so everybody in my chain of command is implicated in this.
Wow.
Robert Mueller was the FBI director at the time, that things went down with Uranium One. And then the other thing too was the intelligence community IG at the time was Michael Atkinson. And Michael Atkinson was the head of the public corruption unit. So how could there was no way for me to even bring this stuff out through the normal chain of command. So I prayed long and hard about it. And honestly, I didn't even want to do this because I knew the moment I did, the likelihood was nothing would happen except that I would get, have my career ruined and possibly put in jail or, set up or killed because I'm.
So he talks about Mueller and all of them trying to cover up for, he thought Clinton was going to go down, and then all of a sudden, he sees the tides changing, and now he's going to whistleblow on Uranium One. Now listen, he's not saying I'm whistleblowing on, the higher ups, saying that they're going to cover up Hillary emails crimes or, whatever. It's about this Uranium One that happened, that was in the newspaper, happened a year prior, and nothing was really found from it. I do want to add here too, I have a document that says the FBI had questioned the Clinton Foundation in 2016, and they were cooperating with the investigation. So I don't I'm not really seeing his full plan here, but let's about 15 minutes, let's and then I'm gonna tell you why this is relevant. Oh no. I don't want my computer to die. That would be bad. That would be bad. Okay. We're going to go back onto the FBI and how he says that he blew the whistle. And my recording was pretty much the same, which is why I'm using this one. It wasn't too much different. And why I think this is so important, we're going to go to the Durham report next and read what he says he contributed to. Where'd it go? Here we go.
And it was put up on the judiciary, the Senate Judiciary website, and it said it basically was a D-class document showing that the CIA was spying on the intelligence committees to find whistleblowers. So there's this kind of stuff. So I knew. So the next thing that I had to do was figure out, okay, how do I get to them without going through proper channels, right? And so I needed a surrogate, and there was a guy who had a YouTube channel called The Still Report. Bill Still.
Sure, yeah.
So I reached out. Bill Still, I knew he was a Christian. He always had a Bible verse at the end.
So he needed to get out this really important secret information, and he, instead of reaching out to congressman, a committeeman, somebody, he reaches out to this guy Bill Still, a podcaster, because his connections. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, Nate.
Of his show, but I also know that he had Bill Binney who was a NSA whistleblower on his show. And so I knew, so I reached out to him initially with a Proton email account saying, hey, I have something I need to talk to you about, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to talk to you on regular email. You have to get a Proton Mail account and then contact me on this Proton Mail account. And the reason I knew to do that, again, I was with NSA, and the fact is that Proton Mail's email servers all reside in Geneva, Switzerland, which is outside the EU and outside of the US's jurisdiction. And Proton Mail was created by the scientists at CERN who didn't want, as long as we had this conversation, both of us are on, that email service would be okay. So he, surprisingly, he reached back out, and he got, within I think a half hour, he reached out to me, and so we started communicating. And, and I talked to him about, what was going on, and I shared with him, and I said, look, I need help. I need to find a way to get to Devin Nunes and get this information to him, because he was at the time the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and they were doing all kinds of inquiries into uranium-1 and a whole lot of other stuff. And I had all of this information. At this point, I had copied these copies of this information to my work computer. And that's not, strange or anything, because people are moving files around all the time, and it's still on the high side. And I didn't know how I was going to get the information out of there. I knew I could print it and hand carry it out, but then, there's a record made of you printing it. And you would set off an alert, because, the thumb drives are prohibited. And they moved me from one desk to another after a teammate that on the pen testing team was walked out. They moved me to his desk, and his desk had a computer that was used for pen testing. And so it did not have all of those security features on it. And so I was able to take a non-serialized thumb drive, plug it in, copy everything onto that thumb drive. That's bad. When you're walked out, it means that, typically you've done something, or your clearance has been revoked, or you've been accused of something, and yeah, it's more than just being fired.
Wow.
And I actually saw, I think, 3 people walked out in the time that I was working there. It's a very hostile work environment.
But it could be that these people are looking into whatever bad stuff is, like what you're talking about. Wow.
I mean, when I was working there, we had, I think it was on 2 occasions where some guys, counterintelligence guys came in, or counter surveillance, and they had these scopes and stuff looking for, bugs, and looking for, cameras, hidden cameras, and, they told me to step away from my desk, and they're, and they did this to everybody in there. And this is in a skiff. And so they're looking at everybody, all the time. They saw all of us as potential, spies, which is, it's
Good
crazy.
Work environment.
Right. Yeah. It's a little stressful, a little bit stressful. And so when I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to try to basically carry stuff out of here and not get caught, because I realized if I got caught, on my way out, they could. Before I did anything, I wanted a sure-proof plan of how I would get it out of there. And so that's when I reached out to Bill, and I asked him if he could get me in touch with the HIPSI. And he did. He had somebody that he knew who had had Nunez's ear, and so he reached out. And
that was Robert David Steele.
No, it wasn't him. No, I don't know. I can't.
Stephen Biss.
Nope, not Stephen Biss.
I find it funny that guy said Robert David Steele, because Robert David Steele's the ex-CIA agent that died of COVID after he was apparently recovering from it down in Florida in I believe 2020. Yeah, 2021. I think it was one of the two. And he won't say who had Nunez's ear, but it's funny to me too. He had to go through a YouTuber to get a hold of somebody on the HIPSI, which is apparently the whistleblowers person or whatever, to get that a hold of Nunez. He goes on to say that, when he did this, he met up with Nunez's people, and I'll put the video up on YouTube so you can see it. But he got a hold of Nunez's people and then gave over the information that he had right before he was raided, and never heard from Nunez again. And that interested me. And then he had to actually go through the proper channels and go through a year-long process of some different type of whistleblower protection, but that's what he ended up doing. But even then, he ran into a problem with the attorney general trying to get this information over to the Senate Judiciary Committee, no, the Senate Committees on Intelligence and the House Committee on Intelligence. They wouldn't accept it from him. And I found that really, really interesting how they would not accept it from him. We're gonna read the Durham report and stop there just for today. I have a lot more, but I don't want to go on for another 2-hour episode. Tomorrow I will be on at 9:30, between 9:30 10 o'clock. I'm not sure. Sometimes my kid's in bed or and we're gonna do part 2 of this just so we can get this done this week. And get back to the bigger issue instead of, not draw him a bunch of attention. I want to draw attention to him so you guys see what grifters look like. But he quotes General Flynn after I got into it with him on the Twitter space, endorsed him 2 days later, by the way. General Michael Flynn. And he's a part of this because he's a part of the whole thing. What I call it, I think Nate Cain is a Flynnian. Part of his little operation. Think about it, he's on the election team. He's some whistleblower that never goes anywhere. Now he's superstar chaser, and Flynn just endorses them, and his military background alone is interesting. So I want to show you the Durham report. So I want to remove this. Give me a second. This is like I'm new to live, so bear with me. Primary intelligence activity share. Here we go. So he quoted in ooh, it's loading. Hold on. It's like 800 pages, so it takes a minute. Oh, sorry, 300. So we want to go to page 78. My internet doesn't want to work tonight. Let's see if I can do this. Hold on. All right, now we're on 64, of course. Right here. Number 3, allegations involving the Clinton Foundation. Beginning in January 2016, 3 different FBI field offices, the New York field office, Washington field office, where Nate Cain worked, and the Little Rock field office, opened investigations into possible criminal activity involving the Clinton Foundation. It does not say Uranium One, it says Clinton Foundation. The Little Rock FBI office, case openings, communication referred to an intelligence product, and cooperating financial reporting that a particular commercial industry likely engaged in federal public official in a flow of benefits scheme, namely large monetary contributions were made to a non-profit under both direct and indirect control of the federal public official in exchange for favorable government action or influence. The Washington Field Office investigation, which is where Nate Cain worked, was opened as a preliminary investigation because case agent wanted to determine if he could develop additional information to corroborate the allegations in a recently published book, Clinton Cash, by Peter Schweitzer. Before seeking to convert the matter to a full investigation, additionally, the Little Rock Fed Office, FBI Office, and the New York Field Office investigations included prediction based on source reporting that identified foreign governments that had made or offered to make contributions to the foundation in exchange for favorable or preferred treatment from Clinton. With 3 different FBI field offices having open investigations related to the Clinton Foundation, there was a perceived need to conduct coordination meetings between the field offices, FBI headquarters, and appropriate United States Attorney offices and components from the department. These meetings likely were deemed especially important given that the investigations were occurring in the election year in which Clinton was declared a candidate for president. Several of those meetings are described in more detail below. On February 1st, 2016, a meeting was held to discuss the foundation investigations. Present for the meeting from the FBI were among the Executive Assistant Director Randy Coleman, Criminal Investigative Division Assistant Director Joe Campbell, and Acting OGC Section Chief 1. Those present from the department, including Criminal Division Assistant Attorney General Leslie Caldwell and Public Integrity Section Chief Ray Hustler. When interviewed by the office, Hustler noted that in sum that the FBI briefing was poorly presented and that there was insufficient prediction for at least one of the investigations due to the reliance on allegations contained in a book. Hustler also downplayed the information provided to the New York Field Office, confidential human source, and recalled the amount involved in the financial reporting as de minimis. Although Holzer declined prosecution on behalf of the Public Integrity Section, he told the office, which is Atkinson, if you think about it, because he was part of the Public Integrity Sector, which Nate Cain said. He told the office that he made it clear, however, that his decision was not binding on the various U.S. Attorney's offices or FBI field divisions. Acting OGC Section Chief recalled that the department's reaction to the Clinton Foundation briefing was hostile. So the OGC Section Chief 1 recalled that the department's reaction to the Clinton Foundation briefing was hostile. 3 weeks later, on February 22nd, 2016, another meeting was convened at the FBI headquarters to discuss the foundation investigations. The meeting was chaired by McCabe. Present for the meeting from FBI were, among others, Coleman, Campbell, and representatives from the affected field offices, including then Washington Field Office Assistant Director in Charge, ADIC, Paul Abbott, which might be Nate Cain's director. Representatives from the Department of the affected U.S. Attorney General's office were also present. At the meeting, McCabe initially directed the field offices to close their cases, but following objections, agreed to reconsider the final disposition of the cases. In his interview in the offices, Abbott described McCabe as negative, annoyed, and angry. According to Abbott, McCabe stated, the department, say there's nothing here, and why are we even doing this? At the close of the meeting, Campbell directed that for any overt investigative steps to be taken, the deputy director's approval be required. This restriction on overt investigative activity essentially remained in place until August 2016. Abbott recalled that the FBI personnel from the field offices left the meeting frustrated with limitations placed on them by the deputy director. According to the New York Field Office Assistant Director in Charge, Diego Rodriguez, Coleman called to him on behalf of the Director Comey around May and directed the New York Field Office to cease and desist from the foundation investigation due to some undisclosed counterintelligence concern. Coleman informed Rodriguez that Comey wanted to consult with Associate Deputy Attorney General David Margolis regarding the referenced counterintelligence matter. The office was not able to determine what the counterintelligence issue raised by Comey was. On August 1st, 2016, a video teleconference meeting was held wherein the Washington field office and the Little Rock field office cases were directed to be closed and consolidated into the New York field office investigation. During this TC virtual teleconference, the New York field office was given authorization to seek subpoena from the U.S. Attorney's offices in southern and eastern districts of the New York, SDNY, and EDNY. However, both SDNY and EDNY declined to issue subpoenas to the New York field office despite previously expressing support for the investigation. Once again, the investigative actions taken by FBI headquarters in the Foundation matters contrast with those taken in Crossfire Hurricane. As an initial matter, the New York field office and the Washington field office investigations appear to have been open as a preliminary investigation due to the political sensitivity and the reliance on unvetted hearsay from information, the Clinton Cash Book, and confidential human source reporting. By contrast, the Crossfire Hurricane investigation was immediately opened as a full investigation despite the fact that it was similarly predicted on unvetted hearsay information. Furthermore, while the department appears to have had legitimate concerns about the Foundation investigation occurring so close to a presidential election, it does not appear that the similar concerns were expressed by the department or FBI regarding the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Indeed, in short order after opening the Crossfire Hurricane file and its 4 subfiles, the FBI was having one of its longtime CHS meetings. Confidential human sources meet not just with one Trump campaign associate, but meet with the record conversations with 3 such insiders. And a little more than a month after opening the Crossfire Hurricane title file on page, a senior U.S. law enforcement official was publicly reporting as confirming for Michael Isikoff of Yahoo News, the FBI had Page on its radar screen. So basically, he's saying that, what he did was referenced in page 78 of the Durham report on a news article where General Flynn is endorsing him for his current House race in West Virginia. And this page 78 that the allegations involving the Clinton Foundation doesn't speak of uranium one. It's not even talking about the uranium one. It's talking about the emails that were on our servers, and he has a lot of information on that. But he says a lot of nothing, and that's my problem with people like this: is you say a lot of nothing. We're gonna stop there today just because we're at an hour and a half, and I like to, not go too much longer because you kind of lose people. But right now, Nate Cain is blowing the whistle on the FBI, apparently, which nothing gets done about it. And next episode, we're going to talk about his reappearance, and then we're going to talk about his dealings with the election integrity event and a little bit more of why he fits in here. To my theory, in interviews, he brings up FISA, he brings up the Tenable Security Network, his work in Hawaii, his work in Japan. And I want you to think what was going on when he was working in Hawaii. Edward Snowden, Japan, same thing. His dealings with the NSA, that could be because why he works for the DEA. He works for the Veterans Service, he works for the DEA, he works for this. Well, if you're working in the NSA, you can be subcontracting to all those people. I don't necessarily think this guy's a hacker. I think he understands the process. I think he understands the systems. I think that he is more of an analyst than anything. But the fact that he went to go start working for the FBI in 2016, the fact that he's on these election teams and working with these people that, have been in the military and beyond forever is suspect. Whether I like it or you like it or not. His connections with Maris, saying that he knows Marie Maris and saying that he just doesn't remember how he knows this person, which that's where we're gonna end here. Is I'm gonna play you a clip of me and what I say to him when he's like, I don't know, all of this is about, about just going after, not about just Clinton and stuff. And I'm like, no, this is about more. And like Hava, and Mark are irrelevant, but no, this is about more. Ohio, shows that with the grassroots and how all these people are working together to, make sure people either don't get involved, just create chaos, and, how they all say create chaos out of order. It's people like this and liars.
And I think he's infiltrated. And so John Brennan.
Well, remember Patrick Byrne. He got himself into trouble with his relationship with that Russian
spy. Yeah.
And so what happens, and people don't understand this oftentimes, but what happens is the FBI will catch somebody in something, and they'll be like, all right, look, here's the deal. You work for us now.
Karen, that's what we said they did with Tori, except she is the person that's running it with her sister from the Obama administration.
It was all over Alex Jones's show, back in the day too.
Yeah.
Well, just so you guys.
No offense, it just doesn't make sense. There are a lot. She's the sisters in the UN. It's higher.
Well, so Tori claimed, and of course I don't know what to believe with her because so many of her claims just seem so outrageous, but. When I was at the hotel, she had claimed that she was speaking with people over at ODNI. And, and I don't know if that's true, but, it seemed kind of bullshit to me. It smelled like bullshit, and I'm thinking it probably was, but, ODNI is pretty high up there in terms of intelligence. I mean, they are the ones that basically are the intermediary for all the intelligence.
But it's very targeted.
But if she was ODNI, she's probably just on the phone with her sister. To be quite honest,
to be honest, it's her sister. This isn't any of.
Her sister wrote the book on CRC, media and terrorism, cybersecurity. She wrote.
I think it's much bigger than Tori, much bigger than any of these characters that we've talked about. You got to understand, I'm working on something right now, and I'm not at liberty to go too much into the details of it, but I was involved. I was hired. My company was hired by LA County to investigate Connaught. Okay. And we actually my team did the live capture forensic.
Here's another group of his, Connaught. So I looked into this, and Connaught, all they, for one, it was the FBI that went in there, so I thought that was interesting. So apparently he's still working for the feds. But none of my business. Maybe a subcontractor, his own company. Him and Harry Howery, the Navy guy, are working together, and we're going to talk more about the election integrity project that Patrick Burns is involved in with Trump and stuff like that tomorrow, just because we're out of time here. But kind of, he said he got all this, he captured something, he did something, but that company came back out and said, all we do is registration rolls and P2 information. He talked about P2 information. P2 information is just like your name, your address, phone number, stuff like that. It's not anything of significance relating to voting. So I don't really know what they're talking about there and what he's talking about there. He is, some super secret spy. So, which maybe is, but I think he's a nefarious spy and FBI spy and clandestine services spy. But tomorrow we will talk about finishing up this FBI, how he tried to get information over to the Senate, and then how he got on to an election integrity team and ran into me, of course. Like I said, this all fits together. It's a bigger piece of the puzzle than anything, and I would truly like people to you know, I know it's really hard to follow, but just hang in there with me till we get through him. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining me, you guys. You guys have a good night, and enjoy this stream. Hopefully the next one is a little better. Just wanted to practice. Have a good night. Thanks. Bye. Oh, and stay focused.